afternoon. If we can ask everybody to take a seat. We have got a big room in front of us today filled with people. We also have 60 plus folks on the phone. So I think everybody has gotten really excited about the town hall format. We're able to reach more than those that are just in Conyers. So thanks to you that are on the phone and joining us, and thanks to you that took the time to come to the room and get lunch, and a beautiful networking opportunity afterwards. So thank you. I am Karen Holcomb, and I am pleased today to announce that this is our 1-year anniversary of Acuity Workplace Empowerment, the Women's Network. So we've really had a lot of success this year in terms of engagement, and you folks really getting involved with Links networks, with the meetings that we've had, with the book club. So I wanted to thank you for that. It's been really, really important to Acuity Brands that you have been engaged in this effort. So thank you so much for doing that. Take you through a great agenda today. We've got some special things on board. I'm going to just kind of give you some statistics about where we are with the Women's Network. Kristen's going to come up and tell you about a volunteer opportunity we have. And then Laurent is going to tie all of this together of how we connect with our culture VTO and why that is so important to Acuity Brands. And we're so excited today to have a guest speaker. Claudia Chan from She Global is here and is going to really bring an outside perspective of why this Women's Network is so important to Acuity and to your global community. And then finally, Vern is going to come up and close for us and tie this all together. So super excited to have you here today and have this great agenda. If you look at where we are, we're 250 members. I think that's great, but I think it could be better. We've got over 3,400 salaried employees, so we want more. And I'm so pleased to see in this audience today that there are women and men here. This network is only successful if we come together, support one another, and learn from one another. So we can do better than 250. So I really look forward to maybe advancing that number next year and showing you a bigger number. And we have a strategy session in November to say, how can we make Acuity Workplace Empowerment, Women's Network, and other networks even stronger in 2019. Links are something I really want to encourage you to attend. What we get feedback from employees from frequently is that you want to be mentored, you want to engage, you want to ask questions, and this is a great way to do it. You can meet people that aren't in your department, you can encourage others and maybe give them the benefit of some experiences that you've had in the past, and maybe also help them get some of your questions answered that you're not comfortable going to your manager about. So what we did, we changed the format a little bit of this, and we have two. We have one at ISF and one in Conyers, so that we can reach the maximum amount of people. They're available on Zoom, so those of you who are not local can attend. So here's some upcoming dates in November and December, so really encourage you to join those network, or join that Links meeting. There'll be materials sent in advance, and just really a great way for you to engage. Another opportunity is Kristen is going to come up and tell you about something fun we have going on. Thank you, Kristen.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen Coxon. I'm leading the Dress for Success effort of the Acuity Women's Empowerment Group. Dress for Success is a global non-for-profit that focuses on getting women in the workplace. So we are collecting women's career attire in all these different locations all around. We have some of our other affiliates with us. Smart Lighting's participating, Lighting Systems of Columbus, Wild, Atlanta IES. We got all these people involved. So if you could bring in career attire and put it in the drop boxes located in the different locations, we would greatly appreciate it. And I will hand it off to Laurent to give an update.
Well, thank you. Do I use one or the other? Okay, very good. How are you? When I saw the Dress for Success, I just had read the memo. I was wearing a white shirt. I thought that's why you were opening up. So happy to be here today. Actually, you said it was the first anniversary of the workplace empowerment. It's also my first year anniversary with Acuity Brands. So I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to talk to you about a few things. You can read where I come from if that's useful. But when Vern and Ricky met me just a year ago, actually it was in August, and they convinced me that there was something that I could help Acuity with. I thought that through. I had, as you know, already taken some times off, 2 years in retirement. I was failing at retirement, and I decided to come back. And the three reasons I gave Vern and Ricky why I wanted to come back and join the team was, first, the challenge and the opportunity to disrupt the lighting industry, which is the core of what I do, really bringing technology into our luminaires. The second reason was the team. I really liked the team as I met some of you early on. And the third one is the culture. And I have to say that a year after joining Acuity Brands, I am at a all-time high on my job satisfaction. And this is because of the same three reasons. We are really making headways in disrupting the lighting industry. We started with retail. Now you won't be able to avoid going to a retail space that doesn't have our lights, with the technology we embed and creating a different experience in the early days. I have really enjoyed, and it's not just the partnership that exists between Vern and Ricky, but the whole team. And finally, the reason was the culture. And so when, I would say it was 2 months ago, Vern, when we really started about strategy deployment. To me, the big point was we always had growth and performance, but when the three of us said we need to have something about culture, and I said, well, that's great, that's exactly where I would like to contribute. So Vern and Ricky said, Laurent, you seem passionate about it, so go ahead and have a go at it. Why is that so important? And so you're all familiar with our matrix, strategy deployment matrix. Why is it so critical today to choose a breakthrough objective on culture? Culture can be so many things. It can be vague. It is something we feel. It is something we experience. But at the end of the day, when you look at what an engaging culture does, it drives results in the company. We had a seminar, we had a workshop with some of the people, and we said, if we think of culture as a soft thing, you know, the thing where we feel good, that's only one part of it. That's probably there. But really, an engaging culture, a workplace that is really empowering, is first and foremost driving performance. And again, how you express that is in engagement of associates. We decided at Acuity Brands that, for you reference, Claudia, that we would focus really on three dimensions of our culture. And on this one, we said associate engagement is probably the biggest entitlement, the biggest opportunity for us to have a highly engaged workforce. The second part was, same is true of customers. We intimately believe that there is no employee engagement and customer satisfaction. The two of them come hand in hand. If you have employees that are interfacing with your customers that are not fully engaged, fully what I call fulfilled, it will reflect on the customer base, and vice versa. The focus on customers is the success of the company. And third, and Barry was here, has done a fantastic job of saying, surely we have our associates, we have our customers, but we belong to a larger world, we belong to a community. How do we want to influence positively that community? And you will see what's coming up together during these breakthrough objectives. We're going to have, of course, our famous annual improvement plans. But we're going to start by defining the purpose, the vision of what we're trying to accomplish. So here in this room, Karen, once again, is stepping up. I have a lot of the SVPs that have volunteered and say, yes, this is what we want. We want to take Acuity Brands to a fully engaged workplace, empowered workplace. So that's what we're going to be driving through many different activities. What I recognized very early on is the first thing about thinking about culture is you build from the strength of the culture that exists. We have an incredible foundation. Again, I told you, I came here because I love the culture as it is today. ABS, the culture of continuous improvement, it's there. It's in the making of everyone. When you come and work at Acuity Brands, it is pervasive everywhere, Claudia. I'm telling you after my 1 year. So we have that point of strength. We have an ability to attract people that will come, and when we look at our last employee survey, there were 3 things that stood out. First and foremost, the #1 satisfaction that we get is working with great colleagues. It was overwhelmingly the #1 thing, that we are very proud to be industry leaders, but we are very proud to have challenging work, but even more so, we love the camaraderie, the esprit de corps, the fact that we're working with great people among each other. So we have some really strong elements of our cultures that are going to pave the way for what we want to do next. So I think, Karen, I'm going to keep this to a broad presentation. What you're going to see coming along with the annual improvement plan is first taking stock of what already exists, and that can be actually architected into this culture of BTO. We're celebrating today the first year of the Women's Network. We are also officially today announcing, if I'm correct, the next network, which is going to be a network for our minority associates, to have also an element of expression. And I can share with you, I've done that before and so on. We believe also that we should have a network of what I call emerging leaders. As you know, in this country, we can't talk about age. The idea is there is a lot of millennials here that have a different perspective on what drives culture, what drives performance. How do we create a network? We have the Women's Network. We just officially have the Minority Network of people that are what I call emerging talents. You're younger in your career, you're newer in your career. How do we get you networked, not hierarchically, not because you belong to an organization, and really push the organization to the next level? So this one is not yet there. Today we're celebrating 1-year anniversary of our Women's Network. We are officially announcing, thank you Crystal and all of you, I don't know exactly, I think you will talk in a minute as to where we are with launching this. So expect more activities, but the main thing for us is to come in front of you with an overall purpose, mission, values, starting from the strength, and then deploying with you the improvement, the annual improvement plan. So look out for a few things. I said to my team that I would be recruiting. We are going to be looking, so think about that, for some champions throughout the organization that are going to help us drive this engagement. So today, I'm officially opening my own recruitment campaign to get some people to help us with this. See me at the end. It's just like at church, see me at the end of the service. Because I want to see if there is, I believe there is a natural desire for people to actually contribute to these breakthrough objectives on our culture. So with this, I'm going to let Crystal take us through specifically what has been now created with the magic. So Crystal, please share your magic with us.
Hello everyone, I'm Crystal Neely, and I wanted to also introduce Kristen McElroy. She's actually the key reason that magic is even a thing, so I definitely wanted to make sure that we acknowledged her today. As Laurent mentioned, we are so excited to basically build on what the Women's Network has done for Acuity Brands. We are actually using the Women's Network framework to create a new program targeted towards minorities here at Acuity Brands. Magic is our minorities amplifying growth, inclusion, and community, and our hope is that we can start to celebrate and educate about our various cultures, diversities, and then to also bring in that diversity of thought. So we are going to have communication about this program that will launch next month. We hope that all of you will join our group And again, we're going to launch this program in December. We have a lot of exciting things that we're going to do, and I'm going to let Kristen talk a little bit about some of our upcoming programs.
And I'll be really brief. But some of the programs that we're going to be launching under Magic is going to be a mentor program. So really keying into people's needs, giving coaching and guidance for them. We're also going to have a leadership series similar to what you've seen from the Women's Network. And then we're also going to have social events. So to make sure that people from different departments are meeting and they're mingling and that we're creating those relationships organically. So I really want to thank you guys for allowing us and giving us this platform to announce it. So you guys will receive communication in January about Magic. Oh, and this is our mission statement. I'm sorry, I did not see it. To foster a supportive, nurturing environment to advance minority development, to realize their full potential at Acuity Brands, and drive company ROI. So with the programs, we're hoping to drive our mission statement, and we look forward to bringing Magic to you soon.
This kind of networks is really the future of, driving what I call the level of energy and engagement in companies. There's another way of getting inspiration is to bring people from the outside. We all have our views of the world, we have all our own experience, but today it is really my pleasure to have the honor to introduce Claudia. Claudia is known, I knew of her, I not met her before in my prior days, but in creating She has influenced the world on the global stage. For us to have you here in this wonderful People Center is an honor and a privilege. You are, again, a reference in the world of helping companies really embrace diversity and the mission around women. And so having you today addressing us is a real honor. Please come on the podium. I'll give you, I think your slides are right after that. So, please welcome Claudia. That's the French influence. Yeah. We hug and kiss all the time. Right? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Laurent, for having that amazing warm welcome. And thank you, Acuity Brands, and Sarah and Karen for coordinating this. It's such an honor to be here. I wanted to quickly just say and acknowledge all of you for showing up. I know that about 100 people I registered for the live event, and then I know over 100 are dialing in on live stream. And looking at the numbers of the 250 of where the Women's Network is, and the fact that there's 3,400 paid salary employees, you really are, the fact that you showed up shows that each and every one of you care about building and growing the community at Acuity, and which means a lot, because we're all super busy and we've got to fight for that free time, right? And then it also shows that you care about personal growth and development, right? Because that's also what today is about. So an applaud to you for all showing up today. I'm glad to give it up to the men in the room. This is a Women's Network event, so thank you, men, gentlemen, super teams, for as well. So I am an author and educator on leadership. I wrote a book recently called This Is How We Rise, and I'm the CEO of She Global. And She Global is a company that helps organizations drive culture innovation around diversity and inclusion with conferences, leadership training tools, education programs, consulting. And as you know, and given everything, the state of our world right now, diversity and inclusion is a really big priority for corporations, for corporate America. What's happening around, gender, race, all issues of equality of all people, right, in this country right now. So, we've been busy at She Global, definitely in the last few years. And so, but the heart of really what we do is actually around people and unlocking people and their potential to transform and innovate and improve their workplace cultures, but also their external communities. See, we believe that when it comes to accelerating good in the world, that it's not companies at the end of the day that drive change, right? It's not the entity, it's the people inside, right? And we so believe in this unlimited power and potential of human beings. And that's why actually the She Global actually stands for She and He Empower the World. So we're just, my life mission, the mission of our organization is really to support people inside. And the other thing too is what's interesting about driving culture change around diversity and women's groups and minority groups is it's often volunteer-based, right? It's often something that you do in addition to your paid job. And as life gets busy and we have kids and responsibilities and our parents are aging, it's hard sometimes to actually find that time, that non-paid time that you are, for you to actually put into that community, right? To coming to events like this, to volunteering and, to do all this extra work, when you don't even know how many people are going to show up. So for us, it's just so important to keep people inside organizations, talent engaged, growing, inspired all year round with our products and services. So what I'm going to do is talk for the next 30 or 40 minutes, share with you my journey, my personal leadership story about how I got to this work on helping organizations. And actually the theme of this talk is actually, this is how we rise as corporate change agents. So that's, I know we didn't have that title in, but really my goal today is really to inspire this generation of corporate change agents. So I'm going to share with you my story on how I got to this work, and then share with you 9 or so steps on how we can rise to affect change. How does that sound? Are we in? All right. Good relevant theme. All right, so let's start with my story. I'm going to take a sip of water really quickly. So I was born in New York City in the community, just grew up in the community of strong women my whole life. My parents immigrated here from Taiwan in the 1960s and had nothing and saved up enough to start Chinese restaurants. But I saw my mom do it all, cook, clean, and eventually actually become the breadwinner of the family. I could not imagine that girls were not equal to boys, right? That we had less strength than boys. And I actually proceeded to have this all-girls education. I went to an all-girls high school and eventually an all-women's college, Smith. And I just couldn't wait to get out of school and start my own business and be an entrepreneur like my mom. And pretty quickly, I basically, around 2001, like right after September 11th, I was at the right place at the right time. My business partner and I started a company called Shecky's, and we did girls' night out shopping parties. So this is the era of the 2000s, where, it was the era of Sex and the City, right? And so much of what magazines were celebrating, there was like you barely read anything about women's empowerment or like the futurist female or girl power. It was all about fashion and beauty and fluff. I call it the fluff materialistic era. But Shecky's really tapped into that, and we had 150,000 women attend our events throughout the year. We were in 15 cities, and we really became the go-to experiential marketing platforms for brands that wanted to reach women. So when you think beauty companies, alcohol companies, fashion companies, we had like the largest traveling series of events. But in the process of all of that, I was sort of approaching, I ran that from 25 to 35 years old, and towards the latter end of those years, in my 30s, I started feeling like I had achieved material success. I was going on TV all the time, I had made money, running a multi-million-dollar business by the time I was 29, but I felt like I lacked purpose. I lacked a greater meaning of my life and what what life was about. And at the same time, my business partner and I increasingly didn't see eye to eye on the vision of the company. And we had a increasingly difficult relationship, and it became toxic, and I just didn't like who I was, running that business with him. And it sent me searching a little bit, because I also at the same time was this female entrepreneur, and I felt like I didn't have forums and resources and mentors. And so I went searching and read tons of books and went to conferences and started engaging, like the Smith College, all-women's college feminist in me woke back up. And I learned more about the state of women and girls in the world. And so this was 2011 statistics. And today, obviously, we're constantly reading about like the gender gaps, like women in leadership, right? We're constantly reading about women's issues today. But back then, you had to like research and dig for it. But I learned back then that 3% of Fortune 500 CEOs were women. Women were making 70 cents of a man's dollar. I think in terms of media and everything that gets marketed to us, like the value of women, like 3% of women held clout positions in media. And, you know, just self-esteem. I mean, I think Dove did some research that only 2% of girls have called themselves beautiful, like eating disorders in this country. You know, just really thinking about, okay, this is like, we are like the most developed world in the world, or the most developed nation in the world, and this is where we are. And then I started looking at third world statistics, which is a whole other level, right? Like the biggest atrocities of what's happening to women and girls in the world, from like sex trafficking, forced prostitution, gender-based violence, countries that use women as weapons of war, you know, maternal mortality. Back then it was every 90 seconds a woman died from childbirth, and today I believe it's like every 4 minutes a woman dies, because maternal health is such a big issue in this country. Anyway, so I became obsessed around and just like learning about, you know, the state of women and girls, and I thought, well, we make up 50% of the world, and yet this is like the status of women and girls, and I felt so ashamed and just so shocked. You know, here I was, I had like grown up as a powerful mom, all girls schools, you know, ran this women's company advising Fortune 500 brands on how to market to women, and, you know, this was a reality that I wasn't thinking about and I wasn't doing anything about. And none of my girlfriends who went to like Yale and like all these great schools, like we never talked about the state of women and girls. And so it's just interesting, right, how like the power of, like, we become the community that we keep, and like everything, like the people around us, and like the magazines we read, and the television that we watch, and how literally everything is educating us and giving us our consciousness and our knowledge. And so I had the big aha that I would leave that company and move from women's entertainment to women's empowerment. And I had the vision of She Global. In the beginning, actually, it stood for She Helps Empower the World. Because at that time, I was like, okay, so if women don't care about women's issues, if me and all my girlfriends, who are the most privileged women, right, aren't driving change, then no wonder progress has been so slow. No wonder, you know, we haven't, you know, accelerated, you know, these numbers better, because women are not caring and doing anything about women's issues. And so how do we expect the rest of the world to? How do we expect workplaces to? How do we expect governments to? How do we expect other groups? How do we expect men to, right? And so that was, you know, starting this company, taking my event planning skills, my content creation skills, and the first, you know, well, to create events and conferences and education and get women to become change agents and start movements to drive change for women. The other thing that I learned that I wanted to teach was that the women's movement is not just one movement. You know, it's a macro movement. And you can actually apply this to like any topic, like sustainability or any topic, but basically, you know, there's not just one issue that we're tackling, right? There's thousands of issues that we're tackling. So on the upper left-hand corner, you know, there's areas for life. So even if you look at leadership and career, you know, there are organizations and nonprofits and companies with initiatives that just are focused on getting more women in boards, right? Pay parity. You know, women, today it's 80 cents to the man's dollar that we're making, right? So there's, and like, you know, closing the corporate leadership gap, right? There's so many, getting more women of color into the pipeline. So there's so many different, even within, so within one movement, there's sub-movements. I mean, motherhood, I mean, I even think about like fertility challenges, right? Or just, you know, how many women, I think they say over 40% of women actually drop out of their career, out of the corporate workplace after they have kids, because it's so hard to manage everything. Or entrepreneurship, I think it's less than 5% of venture capital money goes to women startups, and, you know, self-esteem and financial literacy. So, but then if you move into the industry side, my friend Reshma Sajani started a nonprofit called Girls Who Code about closing the gender gap in tech. But if you look at, I know Acuity is playing in the industry of construction, engineering, STEM, technology. I mean, you guys are sort of playing in different industries. But if you look at most industries are male dominated. And so, you know, and even companies like, you know, women's magazines or beauty, like, you know, your LVMHs of the world, it's majority women, but as the higher you go up, it's mostly men. So, and then of course there's like third world cultural issues. So if you look at, there's just so many things to tackle, and my biggest dream was, you know, how do I get, you know, women to start initiatives and start movements and join movements, and then there would be this ripple effect, right? This ripple effect, because it's a movement happens when there's like an aggregation of so many people driving change in something. Like that's truly when a revolution starts. So, okay, so the first major thing that we did was launch She Summit. And the goal of it was to expose women to role models. So I'm going to just actually play a quick video. It started, the first event was in 2012, but Sarah's going to help me play a quick video for 2.5 minutes just to give you a better sense of what it's all about. She Summit is significant because it is literally a global event to acknowledge, celebrate, and accelerate a new era of a women's revolution that is happening here and now. I call it the She Revolution.
3 years ago, Claudia Chan set out to create a unique women's leadership and lifestyle summit that would make empowerment accessible to all women in the world.
Define success for yourself. Don't let anyone define it for you. Be an ally to other women. Sponsor them, mentor them, listen to them, share stories with them. And remember that we are better together than we are divided.
It was founded with the belief that if she is exposed to a diversity of female and male role models, empowerment stories and solutions, tools for personal and professional growth, education on women's issues and how to support them, realizations of personal power and potential, and a supportive network that helps advance her career and life, she will not only lead more optimally in her own life, but also transform our culture for the betterment of other women and the world.
If I'm going to do journalism today, I want to do it for something that's worth it. And women brought me that.
To be able to empower our sisters and daughters and wives on the other side of the continent.
We are our tribe, and we need to help each other.
My mission was to man up as well as girl up, and to get every other man out there to do the same thing.
It's in everybody's interest for women to be at the table. It's not just in the interest of righteousness and equality.
The best return a woman can get is to ask for the raise. Because you're smart and you're resilient and there are tons of things that you can do.
Work with women and work with women who are organizing to bring a change, because that's really important for all of us. Thank you.
She Summit has become a globally celebrated women's empowerment event, reaching over 200 million social media impressions, engaging Shiite meetups in over 100 countries, and convening hundreds of today's thought leaders. But She Summit is more than just a conference. It is a global celebration of where women are today and an acceleration of how women are advancing.
I'm honored to stand with you today as we work towards furthering women empowerment in the public and private sector.
It is the big tent for today's modern women's movements and campaigns to come together as a collective force. Join Claudia Chan and fellow partners igniting change to enrich lives, inspire social good, and foster generations of female leaders and change makers across the world.
Thank you. So what do you think? All right. So it's 2018, and so we just actually finished our 7th annual conference. It's actually evolved quite a bit. She actually has become, we noticed a few years ago that, often people think, oh, you empower women, and I'm like, well, I do, but I want women to realize their highest potential, but I want to also empower women to be change agents. But that movement hasn't really worked also that well, because it's actually more about today, you got to inspire women and men to drive change, not just for women, but for equality, right? Like that's sort of like the next evolution of this movement, and because it's really about, if we don't have we need men in the rooms. It needs to be all of us driving change for equality for all of us. I mean, I'm actually, I'll talk a little bit later about just our generation of boys right now, and just, like as women are rising too, like what does it mean to be masculine, right? In like a time where there's, as women continue to break through those barriers and, male and female gender roles. So anyway, so it's 2018, and we've had over 450 speakers, lots of renowned thought leaders and experts, and obviously we've reached like tens of thousands of people. And really my dream of, getting citizens and getting women to care about women's issues has happened, right? Female citizen engagement in women's issues is at an all-time high. From ever since Sheryl Sandberg launched Lean In, the book, and to all the initiatives that happen. Advertisers are empowering women with their campaigns. Companies are constantly making statements now on wanting to get to 50-50 in their leadership positions. Media right now is covering lots of news on it. Of course, we almost had a female president, then we had a women's march. Me Too movement happened, time's up. So clearly, I actually call the last few years the fourth wave of, the women's movement. But sadly, A year ago, November 1st, the World Economic Forum published that at the rate that we're going, we're not going to get to global parity, economic global parity, gender parity, for another 217 years. So we're basically like on a global economic level, we're still 217 years away. And by the way, often when you even hear leadership stats, like a lot of the ones that I shared, that's about white women. Like we're not even talking about minority women or other groups. So, you know, we've got a long way to go. And so I thought, you know, what is going to be our next level of impact, right? Or what's the next level of, you know, how we're going to like accelerate change? And again, I'm not a traditional corporate person. I'm a, you know, more of a change, social change thinker. I'm an entrepreneur. And so, so this is a list of just, it's not a pretty slide, so sorry that it's not prettier. But we've got, this is about 150 organizations that sent their talent and teams to our conference a few weeks ago, right? And because over the years, we've always relied on corporate sponsorships and corporate ticket buys to be our revenue, the main revenue source of our company. But then after, you know, after people would send over the years, a few years ago, you know, our content's really holistic. We took a very holistic approach to leadership. So we would have, for example, courageous conversations on inclusion, race, class, gender. What are the invisible barriers to gender equality? You know, everything from like mental health, fertility health, to even our relationships with our spouses at home, to, turn this off. To, you know, he for she. We had a lot of he for she programming. Like how do we get male, you know, we have loads of male speakers and male leaders on the stage. How do we get men to be a part of these women's networks, right? And to be more inclusive of them and make them allies, but also talk about how the men's roles are changing, right? Parental leave and caregiving policies. I mean, we basically had, you know, this very progressive way of thinking about topics that would drive equality. And so companies started asking us, hey, can you bring She Summit programming to our company? Can you help us with our internal, you know, workshops and our topics throughout the year, and help us with our diversity strategy, right? So we started doing that work, and actually Bacardi, a spirits company, brought She Summit, so we do She Summit Bacardi, so it's like our TEDx model. And what's amazing in starting to do this culture change work and this culture advisory work is we started to see, like, and what She Global calls a 360-degree impact potential of a corporation. And really, because if you think about it, and like just even coming here, like, you know, I live up in New York, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh, like Acuity is like a compound, you know? Like it's truly like, it's like its own village, right? And so companies are really like micro-societies, if you think about it. It's like a whole micro-society and culture that touches so many people at so many different layers. And Laurent earlier said something about, you know, taking inventory, you know, as you're going into next year's planning, taking inventory of what's being done. And so what we started finding in that, you know, like, you know, a financial firm, a financial client, for example, inventory of what they were doing around women, you know, marketing was focusing on like, how do we empower women in their financial security? But then, like, HR was doing stuff around, okay, we've got, like, these women business affinity groups, and then their foundation was doing stuff around women in STEM, but none of their initiatives talk to each other, right? So what we found in organizations is that their initiatives are so scattered and they don't connect. There's no cohesive 360. But if you think about the impact, I mean, I think that Acuity employs, there's 13,000 people, right, paid, like, part-time and also full-time salary. And you just think, okay, well, you know, like I work in a company, right? But you know, this is a company with 13,000 people. So, but can you imagine that, you know, this company and your impact impacts 13,000 people and their families, right? Number one. Number two is suppliers, like all the vendors that you're using, your procurement, right? Your value chain and all the people that you touch there. Or your industry-wide impact. You know, Bacardi, we worked with them on launching Spirit Forward, which was an initiative on how to empower women in the hospitality industry. Because if you think about, you know, the distribution, and it's a very, very difficult industry for women to work in, like waitresses and bartenders, right? And so just getting people to think about, getting companies to think about their greater impact to, you know, your customer base. God, when you think about the volume of companies that you reach, and also, you know, like I know She Summit Bacardi invited their suppliers, right? I mean, we're getting like the largest alcohol distribution company in the country to come and learn about diversity. So the thing about, you know, we just got so excited about the corporate potential, and that, but again, remember the impact of people. It's not companies, it's the people inside companies companies that actually come together and develop that strategy and develop that culture change. So, I don't go there yet. Oh. So that's really just bringing us to this conversation around corporate change agents is that, we believe that the next generation of, I actually am hoping that the next generation of change agents comes out of corporate America. And it's interesting on so many levels, that I feel like our numbers, like diversity's been around since the 1960s, and yet we've inched along in terms of like those percentages. Like, I think we're 3% of, CEOs were women, but like today it's like still less than 5, right? We're still inching along, but so much of it is because, the people that can drive the change either leave the workplace, right? Like a lot, like 40% of women are leaving the workplace, and all those people that can change the workplace are leaving. And so, but today we have an opportunity. The other thing too is, we also want to, I also believe that we need to be celebrating, corporations more in the media. For example, I want to see, fast companies, like 30 people changing the world. Wouldn't it be great to have more corporate people there, as opposed to just, humanitarians or activists? And I think so often people think that they have to do that purpose-driven work outside of their organization, when so much of it, can be done within the organization these days. And, I think that's also really important for our young people too, and our younger generations, because, you want them coming into the workplace feeling like that they can work at a company, and actually really do good in the world. So, that's really, that's our greatest passion right now, because this is not just about, potential is not just about 13,000 people. It could be about tens or even hundreds of millions of people. And you as somebody, and I know it seems so like unfamiliar or like awkward, like, okay, me as a change agent, but, we can't change everything, and like, we can't do everything, but we can all do something. And when you aggregate, all of us and all of our efforts, there's a ripple effect that can happen. So, on that note, how many of you feeling good about thinking of yourself as a change agent? Yeah? I see some nods, Yeah, and I love too what Laura was saying about, all of you showing up and all of you being here to hear this message is, in the 250 number, and how do we get that 250 number to 500 and to 1,000 and to hopefully 3,000, right? And in so many ways, the people here, can actually drive that. And that's the ripple effect. So I want to move into the 9 steps on how we rise as change agents. So the first step is, actually before I even say that, is I'm going to get a little spiritual, because when I went to Smith College, my roommate was from Atlanta, and I swear she willed it to happen, but I ended up marrying an Atlanta boy, John, who's over there, and he went to Auburn, and so it was like my destiny, right, to be connected to the South somehow. But he started taking me to church when I met him about 10 years ago. And it's funny, I didn't grow up with spirituality. I mean, I grew up believing in God, but I ended up going to this Baptist church in New York City, and I fell in love with it. It was like the right time, the right meaning and message for me. And it really just got me thinking about my life meaning for the world. And so I actually root my leadership and my strength and my called source. Like, what is your source in leadership? Because that's what the next, how many minutes do I have left? Maybe 20? is about our personal power and our leadership, and we have to root that into something so much bigger than us. And for me, it's God, but for anybody else, it could be your children, it could be, spirit, it could be the universe, whatever it is. But I feel like when you root yourself in your ego or like accolades or a salary level or a title, then you're really just living your life for yourself, right? Then you're really just living yourself like your own personal, means, and then I feel like you're sort of living a small life when you think about the potential of the universe and how big it is. So that's the first thing, is I root and these 9 steps is really also like part of my journey and my experience. And so rooting into something much bigger than ourselves. So the first step is believe that your birthright is to be extraordinary. And some of us might just think that, okay, well, I don't have a choice, right? Like, if I'm going to be extraordinary or not. My destiny is if I'm meant for greatness or not. But it's interesting, there's 7.3 billion people on this planet, and there's only one you in the world, right? And can you imagine for a second, and by the way, there's nothing ordinary about that. And I actually think that if you want to be ordinary or extraordinary, like, that's actually a choice. It's not something that just is like your reality and your, like a fact. So can we imagine that the family that we were born into, who our parents were, all of our natural born skills, every experience that we had, all the good stuff, but especially the hard stuff, especially the trials that we had to persevere through, that it all has happened for us to actually help us realize, what our bigger calling and what our bigger purpose is in this world, right? Like, can we just imagine for a second that all of those experiences and all of that thought has been put in you, inputted in you so that you can output, so that you can do something so much bigger in the world, right? And that your destiny, your birthright is to be extraordinary. And it's just a matter of you actually at some point seeing it and realizing it. And for some people, you might like to see it at 30, or you might see it at 40, or you might see it at 50, but my goal is for somebody to see it as soon as possible in their lives, because if we get to live to 80, I'm 43, so that's 37 years I got left. I actually, the minute that you realize how big your potential is and how extraordinary you are meant to be in this world, then the more incredible of a life experience you will have for those remaining 37 years of your life. Second is, which will help the exercise of believing that we're extraordinary, that our potential is to be extraordinary, is to contemplate what your life means for the world. So I think that we're so busy, right? We get caught up in the day-to-day of having our to-do lists, and we live in what I call an inside-out perspective most of the time. It's reactionary inside-out perspective, as opposed to thinking about your life from the outside perspective. So I would say, if I'm God, or if I'm the universe and I'm looking at 7.3 billion people, and there's Claudia Chan, right? What is Claudia Chan, what's her purpose on this planet? What is she meant to impact, right? So if we start seeing our lives from that perspective, then there's something sometimes you have to exaggerate something to see the message, right? You have to, to see ourselves in a bigger way, right? And how much of us do we feel like, we have so much potential in us, and are we truly, truly living our potential? This is actually what I call a life mountain, and so again, it helps me with my outside-in perspective. So if you're the bottom is you're born, and the highest, your destiny, your end of life is your highest destiny. Then it's sort of an interesting thing when you think about because I also believe that greatness, when you live a great life, that happens when you're doing something that impacts a larger body of people, right? But you're not going to maximize that purpose and maximize that social impact unless you've evolved as a leader, unless you've gone through leadership development and leadership growth. And you're not going to really develop fully as a leader, though, right, if you haven't gone through personal growth. And for me, I read that into spiritual growth or something bigger. But it just sort of helps us think about, our life mountain, that life is like this mountain, and that even when we go through hard stuff, we think that we're dipping, we think that oh, why am I struggling with this, or why did I just get a pay salary cut, or why did I just lose my job, or whatever it is, or this person, problems with a relationship, often, even though you go down, you're going down, but you're still going up, because all of those problems are happening for us. And so anyway, so I think about life potential and where am I at in my life potential, right? And what my life means for the world. So I love this analogy, and I also believe that in order for us to grow every year, we actually always have to connect, educate, and activate, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So this third step is visioning. We have to vision big. If we want to rise as leaders, rise as change agents, we have to vision big and be bold. And I've heard a lot about, how Acuity, disruptive change, all the, lighting technologies that you guys are doing. This is a disruptive, innovative company with, obviously driven by innovative, disruptive, brilliant people, right? But, so often I think as women, right, we tend to, not vision big enough and not really spend our time dreaming about the possibility of what could be for our lives and for the communities and the workplaces that we work in. So, and the bigger the vision, the bigger steps we take. And that's always a philosophy that I've lived by. And I also think of vision as the structure that actually to achieve a purpose. So, for example, if there's a cause that you believe in, Are you going to do that by starting, Magic, right? By joining Magic and being a part of a project and being part of, or maybe there's something that's missing in an organization, right? Or in your community, that a topic that, single moms or, LGBT or whatever the topic is, right? Or even topics that, haven't even been done before. I also think that visioning big is having the courage to actually do what people haven't been done. I say when you see the invisible, you do the impossible. And so we have to be courageous, and which leads me to we have to be bold, very bold in our steps. I think also too, often women, we tend to be conservative in terms of most people are risk averse, right? Most people play it safe. And I think that there's actually one of my favorite pastors says that the future belongs the future belongs to the bold and to the people who have the courage to create it. And Brené Brown, another one of my favorite leadership authors, says that you can choose comfort or you can choose courage, but you cannot have both. So I think that in order for us to really maximize, again, get to that extraordinary potential, what our life means for the world, we have to think bigger, we have to be bolder. And when we're always in control of everything and we're not taking risk and we're always playing it safe, are we really, really living out, what our potential is, right? Are we really taking advantage of everything that is inside of us? So what are you going to affect change in? So if I'm slowly buying, you guys are buying into this concept of being a change agent. By the way, change agent to me is just a sexier way to say leadership, right? But there's something about it that, where you feel like, this is not just like, I'm leading something, I'm moving something from here to there, I'm moving other people forward, but there's something about change agent where, and purpose, right? Where you feel like you're impacting something so much bigger than yourself. And I actually believe that the trick to really accelerating change is when you can align people's personal purpose with organizational purpose. So defining a purpose, for you that is holistic though. So in life, you're not gonna hit the bullseye unless you see the bullseye, right? So I think having that clear goal is important. And so for purpose to me, I think it's one of those complicated terms where you're like, wait, I have so many purposes, I care about so many different things. And so what I say is define your purpose in your personal realm, which is of course your kids, your favorite, passions and hobbies and your health and your finances and your career, right? And all those personal things. But at the same time, what's your purpose in the social realm? And so that really helps us, and I think this applies to the person, it also applies to organizations, but in order to figure that out, I would say start where you struggle. Most people have either been through some really hard things or they have witnessed something really hard. And often it's from there that, if chances are, if you saw that or experienced that, like millions or thousands of other people probably experience that problem, right? So, or probably can find community in that. And so, figuring out what impact do you want to make on the social realm is start where you struggle. Like, what have you gone through? And often our greatest pains and our greatest struggles can be our greatest blessings and maybe our greatest areas of impact. I often say, turn your pain into your positive impacts. So I think purpose is, so now we've hopefully gotten you thinking that your birthright, you're here to be extraordinary. What does your life mean for the world? Okay, you're 43 years old, got 37 years left. How am I going to really maximize and not just live my life for myself, because I'm not meant to be on this universe just to extract everything around me for me, myself and I, and my little family, but I'm actually here to actually contribute and be a part of something much bigger. So hopefully you're starting to think about that and you're raising your hand to that. So now we have to be prepared for, because we're raising our hand to this bigger life, to this more bold life, right, and taking some more risks, is that we need to definitely know that heart, like we're going to get more no's to the yes. When you raise your hand to something bigger, there's always going to be loads of challenges and trials ahead. I would say extraordinary problems happen to extraordinary people, mediocre problems happen to mediocre people. So now, especially this, I would say, especially with women, that the first step to really cultivating resilience is knowing that there's a battlefield and a war zone in your mind. I'm sure this applies for men too, but I just know personally, and talking to so many of the women that I know, is that we all have our core limiting beliefs. We all have those 1, 2, 3 bad habits or negative thought patterns that always come at us. you know, when it comes to like wanting to dream bigger, wanting to go after something that, you know, we like maybe think about for a second and then we sort of rub it away, right? It's, there's always these underlying, you know, bad habits that we have. I call them mental disabilities and mental enemies, basically. And often they're rooted from our childhood. They're rooted from how we grew up, or they're rooted from some sort of experience that we've had, right? Because we're products of how we grew up and the environments that we were in. So I think as soon as you can is realize that if I want to affect and do and have greatness in this world, that there's going to be a lot of hard things and there's going to be all this negative self-talk that's going to come at me, then writing those things down and starting to track down what my patterns are is a really powerful thing to do. And you start changing your relationship with managing those thoughts, right? So how many of you know what I'm talking about? Yes. I love it. Men raising their hand, women raising their hand. This is great. And I'm going to talk about vulnerability too in a little bit. So I think that, you know, that's truly for us to be bold. We just need to know that we're going to have a lot of bumps in the road, but we're going to need to be proactive about them. The other thing is obstacles also build us. Like we actually grow through hardship, right? Obstacles can protect us, they can direct us, they actually are what grow our courage muscles, our patience muscles. I think in general, human beings just need to have a different relationship with struggle, right? And like just know that if I'm meant to be great and I'm meant to be extraordinary and I'm meant to do big things, that I'm meant to go through a lot of hardship so that when the hardship comes, we're not freaking out about it, right? And we're being like, okay, you know, like this is growing me. Like this is a growth opportunity for me as a leader to maybe do some greater good for something bigger. Moving into community, which is of course what this Women's Network is about, and this whole new culture initiative at Acuity. Is step 6, which is we can only really grow in community with others. Now, to our potential. I mean, so much of it, I mean, we've heard it so many times that we're created to be in community, right? We're created, like, that's how we learn, and, you know, but it's interesting that, you know, we get so busy in life that sometimes it's the first thing that goes, right? Like, you got your job, you got your family, and then I have no time for any of those things, right? Like, whether it's my church, whether it's like that company event, or, you know, like this nonprofit that my friends invited me to and that event, right? And then it's just so easy to say no to those things and get so alone sometimes and separated and disconnected and isolated. And it's so, and also too, even like it's sort of ironic, but like with the social media world, when you know, I think that this is another thing that purpose does that I heard a pastor say, which is purpose prevents distraction, because, you know, comparison is such a big thing, right? And it's like, it's so easy to, like, without us even knowing it, we're being given insecurities by just looking at all the perfect photos that our friends are posting all the time. Or, you know, this person just got like the CEO job and how come I'm not there yet, or whatever. So, you know, I think that it is actually in community with others that we grow. Every meeting, every connection is an opportunity to teach or to learn. And it's actually, there's so many, it's critical that we are in community so that we can come together and actually support each other in our journeys of leadership, in our journeys of learning, right? Because that's how we learn, is in that communication. So something just so simple, but yet, hey, and this is not, by the way, like, you know, 1 year into an initiative and, you know, a few hundred people signing up. I mean, this is very common, but it just sort of shows like how important it is for us to show up and for all of you to then become hopefully champions and encouraging and bringing in other community, because we also become the community that we keep, right? We become and we take on the attributes of who we're hanging out with. And the other thing that I wanted to say about community is, you know, the lost impact potential when communities are not formed. And when you think about, you know, the diversity of skill sets and backgrounds and talent of everybody, even in this room alone, or even within the organization, and if that group came together, like, again, in the context of this whole new culture initiative and all this innovation and impact that Acuity can have, and you think about, you know, all the information and all the intellect and the passions and the stories of all the individual people, like the lost opportunity and potential that is not only for each of us, right, but also for the organization. And so, you know, we're just sitting on top of this potential, but we just, and it's not that complicated. We just need to have the consciousness to do it. The other thing I wanted to say about community, and that we've learned in a lot of our work with organizations and people, is that it's It's really about courageous conversations. I think in the world today, given how broken the world is and how we read all these things in the news and we think, okay, how does that make me feel, right? That we need to have courageous conversations because we cannot solve or innovate things. Like, we cannot solve what we cannot talk about. Right? Like, we're not gonna it's like marriage problems, right? Like, that fight is gonna happen over and over and over and over again until you finally really get into the root of the problem, right? And really say, this is how I feel. And that takes courage. True courage is often showing who you really, really are. And often we don't do that because we're afraid about what people are gonna think about us. We're afraid of so many things. And so, that's the other thing we're really seeing in organizations worldwide is encouraging courageous conversations because. And it's not even just to solve problems, it's also for innovation, like all the ideas that can come together that the entity could benefit from. This is, just a quick thing on, and we use this for She Summit, which is to grow every year as a leader. We need to not only build our connections and constantly cleaning out our community. Like, you'll notice there's certain people that I hang out with all the time that just don't serve me, right? Or like, that's like everybody's changed and gone different ways, but then there's new friends, right? There's new people where you and I align so well, right? It's to constantly like clean out your closet, right, with your community, but building community with like-minded people, expanding your education every year. It's like education, knowledge is power, exposing, reading books, like book clubs, to going to these events and going to these workshops and learning, because that creates consciousness, consciousness creates care, care turns into action, which is then, of course, activate. Every year, in order for us to grow as leaders, we also have to commit to action, right? We have to commit to actually doing something. And again, we have all the privileges that we do have in this world because of other people that took action for us, right? Step number 8 is multiply leaders as you rise. So, one of the benefits of, when you think about affecting change, by the way, how many minutes do I have? Okay. One of the benefits around affecting change is clearly the cause, right, that you are going to help people in. Okay, so if my cause is, I want to help girls get into like the STEM field. I want to get more girls in because all the jobs in the future are going to be STEM related. And only 12% of college graduates are women and women, and so that's my cause, right? So obviously, when you want to affect change for something, one benefit is the cause you're affecting those people. Another benefit is like you just feel better about yourself, right? You feel like there's more meaning. You're not just living yourself for you. But the other thing is you're also role modeling leadership. You're also multiplying other leaders, and there's something about doing that proactively. And so as you're building, Magic, and as you're building the Women's Network, and as all of you continue to launch other initiatives and join and expand and get 2,000 people here next year, right? Let's give it up for that. Yeah? Okay. Come on. It's going to happen. We become what we believe, so we got to just believe it. Is that, we're actually, like, you're planting a seed in somebody else. One conversation, like, we can ripple effect change, and like, we can impact so many people that we don't even know about, right? It's back to that extraordinary impact. I'm closing, the steps with, more of a work-life balance topic because I know often it's like, are you kidding me, Claudia? Like, I can barely, and by the way, I have a 20-month-old and a 3-year-old, and I'm 43 years old. So I'm tired. I like have kids like later, and I'm running this organization. It's to like my method and my strategy of having to do it all, to juggle it, because it's integration, right? But is to treat my whole life as the organization that I'm leading, and to think of it that way, and to think of all of my job responsibilities as different like departments, like business departments, like marketing and sales. Like, okay, here's a department of parenting. Here's my department of like personal self-care and like mental health, right? Here's my department of like making sure I'm going on date nights with my husband so his marriage is like really alive and well. And here's my department of being a mentor and a leader to my team, or to the calling that God has, placed on me to like, I have this dream of, hopefully impacting millions of people and activating change agents inside organizations for, thousands of companies, right? I mean, like, dream big, vision big, be bold. So I have all these life departments, and so what I think about it is as like I play all these different roles. I'm a diversity. My makeup is all these different roles in my life, and in any given time, there's always going to be 2 or 3 departments that take priority. So like right now it's November, right? It's like the next 2 months of the year, we just wrapped up with our conference. you know, maybe, you know, okay, like I was so slammed, now I'm spending more time with my kids, you know, like this is gonna, like, this department is gonna come up to the top, you know, and then it's gonna be financial cleanup of the year, like that, you know, like I'm really unhealthy right now, I gotta go see like 10 different doctors, right? So there's a way to juggle things, but because we're all business people, and we all think, like we're all strategic thinkers, and I know, you know, so many of you are so good at juggling so much, but I think often we do it at the sake of like literally dying. Like we're so depleted and so exhausted, right? And so and then you don't have any juice. What? You want me to go to the next Acuity, like culture thing? Like I don't have time for that, right? And so the thing is that it's all about, back to the purpose, right? Is that you've already identified what matters. And so when you've identified what matters, you know what you're living for, you know? And so, you know what to say yes to, you know what to say no to. And this matters. So when you think, okay, I'm being invited to this Acuity event, and this aligns with my passion to advance women and to do something for women of color, and, you know, and and like maybe the company can have this initiative, and you start connecting that this is not just like, oh, an hour of my time that I can't fit in between, you know, this meeting and that meeting, right? It becomes about something so much more. So I'm going to just close with that life is not just about leadership development, like, and I say it's legacy development, right? That really we're here, like we're not here to extract everything for ourselves, like, you know, lucky enough to live 80 years, we're here to live our life for something bigger. And I think traditionally people have thought about, you know, okay, if I'm going to do good, I'm going to like do something, you know, for this nonprofit. My friends, I've got the corporate job, my friends got the nonprofit, or I'm going to volunteer for this thing, or Dress for Success, or which is amazing, and you know, and then, but maybe I can also really engage in the culture of my organization, this amazing company that has been so successful, that cares so much about people, right? And that has all of this potential impact to not only impact 13,000 people, but to impact tens or hundreds of millions of people because of all the layers of reach of humanity that you impact, right? And so not only can we be change agents and rise, and not just live our lives in the world, but lead our lives for the world through our organizations and through our communities, right? PTA, school, like all those things that you care about, and find a way to do it. And I know it's such hard work, but that's what life is, right? Like that is like, what do you want the meaning of your life to be? And to me, like if this is, like to me, if like this is my potential, you know, like imagine like I have all this unlimited potential, like that is literally the world is waiting for. Like if this is the rest of the world and I'm only living this amount of potential because I'm not even thinking or believing that I can be extraordinary, that I can make that kind of impact. It's like the world is missing out. Humanity, the world is so broken now. And we can all lead from where we are. You do not need to be in charge to lead. It's not about even leadership, it's about legacy. And I'm going to just leave with some of my favorite quotes, which is Maya Angelou talked to Oprah, because like she was always a mentor of Oprah, and Oprah was talking about like her legacy, and she said, Oprah, you have no idea what your legacy will be. Your legacy is what you do every day. Your legacy is every life you've touched, every person whose life is either moved or not. It's every person you've harmed or helped. That is your legacy. So I love that. I love that. It just amplifies, you know, what does our life mean for the world? And I love this quote, which is, your schedule is less about what you need to get done and more about who you want to become. I have a lot of other quotes, but I'm going to leave everybody with that one. All right. Thank you so much.
What an inspiration. I don't know about what steps we are on in our lives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, but really you gave us a roadmap for what we can become as individuals, as an organization. So thank you, really a privilege. Vern, you are closing for us.
Claudia, you are the reason that I speak first, not last. I mean, how do I follow that? You guys set me up. Claudia, thank you so much. Your talk with us was truly inspirational, and your story is even more inspirational for all of us. So really, really wonderful. Kristen, you need to expand Dress for Success to include men. I have been out there for 10 days with George, Mark Hand, and Asia. It took me 4 tries to find a pair of pants that I could fit into, so I have a lot of clothes for you. Well, thank you all for being here. This is really fantastic. And, you know, as I think about our next steps, you know, many of you have heard me say this, business like life is a team sport. It's how we all engage each other. And think about things in your life that you experience, whether you're a person who enjoys concerts, so you see the band. You're a person who enjoys sports, so you watch teams and how they play in sports. I happen to be, after seeing Laurent's photograph, I believe he did it for Halloween, and he was dressed as a chef. I happen to enjoy eating, and my wife, that's why I have lots of clothes for you. My wife came up through the Cornell Hotel and Restaurant School, so we spent a lot of time in restaurants and stuff like that. You know, to be a great restaurant, to have Michelin stars, the chef has a goal, and the goal is to, how can I be the best? But if any of you have ever seen how a kitchen operates, you know that it takes a team, a well-choreographed team. The best chefs, the best restaurants, they bring people from all over the world to, no pun intended, but to spice their stew, to have people who understand what their roles are. They practice every single day on how they can operate as a team so that the experience that the customer has is that exceptional dinner, that exceptional meal that is in front of them. But just imagine if the chef brings in someone who, again, from all over the world, they're an Italian person, they're a Korean person, and that person is cooking something different than what the purpose of the restaurant is. You, the customer, are not going to have a great experience. When I think about Acuity, we are that 3-star, that 3 Michelin star company. We have worked hard to achieve that, but it wasn't always that way. If you go back to 2005, and probably half of you weren't with Acuity in 2005, the other half, Linda, you were here, we weren't the best company that we could be. When you think about what Claudia was telling us, you know, how could we hit our stride? So what we did, and Karen, you'll remember this, Lisa, you'll remember this, you know, we started out, our mission was, let's become a better company before we become a bigger company. At the time, we were about $1.6 billion. Our operating margins were about 5%. Our cash flow return, our ROI was terrible. Fast forward to where we are today. We're a $3.7 billion business. Our ROI, our CFROI, is now in the 30s, up from 6 or 7% in 2005. We did that as a team. We did that as a team. We embraced ABS, we used the tools. How could we become better? The way we became better is we worked together. We worked towards a purpose, a mission of how can we deliver the best experience. So when the board and when the management team came together, we said, how do we take our game to the next level? Because Acuity has the opportunity not just to be the best lighting company in the industry, but the best company. And that should be our goal. How do we become that world-class company that others look to and how we operate? You know, everyone has the same machinery and equipment. They can go buy the same computers, the same trucks, the same punch presses, all that stuff. The difference is, how do you use your human talent to make a difference? How does that human talent come together and operate as a team? And so, Laurent, this is what that AIP is about. We said we need to take our human capital and make it even better. We need to do that by teaching each individual, giving each individual, as Claudia points out, the opportunity to be the best that they can be. But just like that chef that's in the French restaurant, you know, you can't have cooks cooking all to their own, you know, their own style, their own way. They have to come together as that team. And that's really what we want to do with this AIP. It's really a BTO, it's a breakthrough objective, but when you think about all aspects of it, it's how do we make you better? It's how do we become more diverse? Not just gender, not just orientation, but just thought globally. You know, I'm so proud when I come to Acuity every day. I see a United Nations. We have already pushed ourselves But our industry does not look like Acuity. This is our advantage. This is our opportunity to build on the skills that each of you have. How do we make you better? And that's really what we want the BTO to be about, is how do we take individuals, how do we tailor our development plans to you, but then also how do we use the tools of ABS to bring us together towards that bigger purpose, that bigger opportunity. And that's really what the notion of bringing people together, you know, the empowered workplace, it's empowered all of us as a team. You know, the challenge that I would put to all of us is, you know, as fellow teammates, what can I do to make you better? What can I do to help you become more successful? And if we can get 13,000 people asking that question of each other, eventually someone's going to come to you and ask you, what can I do for you to help make you better? And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to take our game to that next level because Acuity has that opportunity. You know, 2018 was really our first kind of year where financially we performed less than we did the year before in a really long time. But the board recognized that the team had put forth tremendous effort. We laid the foundation. Judy, thank you for being here. Judy is on the compensation committee. And what the board decided was that even though we did not meet our financial performance, you all performed. You performed in a tough environment. So we provided gain share, we provided the bonus opportunity, we did these things because the board knows that we are laying the foundation for really great success. If we work together, if we use the tools of ABS, if we really drive the power of what all of us can mean together, we are going to have period over period performance because taking care of you, taking care of all of our associates, we do that right, we will take care of our customers and they will take care of us and deliver financial performance. So again, all of you, thank you so much for being here. It's a journey and I'm just so excited where we're going and how you are participating. So thank you so much for being here.
I'm going to open up to questions, but before I do that, I have a few books I wanted to give away, so let's start with that first. First of all, I'm going to thank two people here who have always helped me have these things. So my first is Miss Crystal, and second, Janet over here, who is manning our camera. It's always a thankless thing. We want to make sure that we did it right and we get it out to everybody over there in the virtual world as well. I also have 4 books for here, and then 4 books that will be sending out to those that are on the phone. So I'll start with, I've got Jeff and Dama. This was a random selection, by the way. Crystal observed this. Random numbers, so both Jeff and Dama. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming. And then I also have Allie and Amber. So I'm going to pass these back so I don't have to run all the way away. Thank you. And then I also, just for those on the phone, they're going to be mailed out to you. It's Hansi, Pauline France, Steve House, and Tamil Calvin. So with that, though, I want to open up for questions. Anybody have questions for Claudia, for Vern, for Laurent, for Karen, myself? Anybody else here? Questions? Okay, yes.
I'm not going to ask myself a question because that would be weird. So I'm going to ask Claudia a question. You know, one thing I'm finding today is that people are working remotely. People are sending emails. People are texting. People aren't connecting live and in rooms like this as much. So it can be harder to have that sense of community and that sense of connection that you talked about. What are some things that you have seen companies do that really helps us build that community, even if we aren't face-to-face with one another?
I feel like we need to sit at a panel. And my mic is on, right? Oh, yeah. So I think that it's interesting. I mean, we're seeing a lot of, and we just had the head of talent acquisition and flexibility and mobility at like IBM and EY and all these Fortune 500 companies speak at our conference. But we're seeing really innovative things around creating more, like the future is about flexibility and how flexibility, caregiving, policies all are so critical for companies. Because especially if you want to retain women, and retain diverse talent. For example, at American Express, they apparently like 80% or a huge population of their company can actually work remotely. They have launched a concierge service actually for employees, where literally if you are planning your wedding or you need a doctor's appointment, where there's a concierge service. That's at Morgan Stanley as well. We've seen father breakfast series around engaging, like there's all this encouragement now, because like Deloitte, for example, has an amazing 16-week parental leave, but a lot of the men aren't taking the time off because they feel like it's going to impact their career. So at a company like Amex, they started doing father breakfasts about like don't miss a moment. And a lot of it is also the more that men are encouraged to take that parental leave, that that's actually good for the families, right? It actually supports sort of dual, two people driving income, two people taking care of, the family, the kids. That's also actually increasingly a demand for younger generations. Like we're seeing a lot of millennial men and the younger generation come into the workforce that are saying like, hey, I want to do 50% of the domestic duties at home. And that's also just where the whole paradigm shift is going here as well. But yeah, there's a lot of innovative, at even a company like Intel, I know they launched something called, it's like an anonymous hotline to prevent flight issues, like for people leaving, that there's an anonymous hotline that you can call, because to share a problem that you might be having where you are, right? Because it's like people are spread out everywhere, and often people don't leave companies, they leave people. So, it's hard, like how do you find those, sometimes you can lose somebody so good. So yeah, we're finding that, remote businesses, like that is the power of the future. Younger generation, like women, like, caregiving, working parents, all, like we need to have that flexibility, but we also need to have that trust. So it's really establishing those, it's not just, leadership saying these are our values, this is what our culture stands for, but it's also having the policies and programs in place.
Can you talk to us a little about, you mentioned living your life in a department-like state, where when you're doing one thing, you're focused on that. Can you tell us a little bit about how you balance if two departments are on fire at simultaneously? I think about a little bit where when you're really busy with work and then you have children who may be, for an example, Halloween was this week. So, we have all these things that are going on here at Acuity Brands, but then I also found myself making a Wimpy Kid mask at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. How do you balance that a little bit so that you don't find yourself in that crazy state?
I think it's, so much of it is like my faith and my mindfulness, right? And for some people, it's like, hey, I do yoga, I got to run in the morning. I know for my husband, John, it's like morning time. Like he gets at like 4:45 a.m. and just spends like an hour reading. And so for me, it's really finding that time in the day when that starts happening to just pause. And I actually do prayer meditation where I actually just connect with God, and I'm just like, okay, because we're really, it's really like worry is just a useless feeling, and stress, but stress at the same time can kill us, right? The overwhelm of life. And when we're not, and we're just in the weeds, and we're go, like trying to juggle so much, we get into the weeds and we're living reactionary. It's in those moments where you feel overwhelmed, you feel really stressed out, that you have to pause, you have to take a minute, you got to take a break. For some people, it's going for a walk. For other people, it's meditation. It's different for everybody else, but finding what that is for you to shift your state and to catch yourself and say, you know what, it's all going to be okay. If the Halloween thing, if that falls apart, like nobody's going to die, And I think that we sometimes just put so much pressure on ourselves. That's unnecessary pressure. And I also think that often too, our stress is rooted in, things that actually need healing in our lives. So I actually tend to stress out a lot about money, and so sometimes, something, we lose a nanny or something, and then I think about, everything triples back to money, right? I also find that often we stress out about things that are connected to something deeper. So unless you figure out what that deeper thing is, maybe it's self-worth, maybe it's like, why do I worry so much about this all the time? It's connected to something deeper, and once you start working on that stuff, you'll be less, you're going to grow, and you're going to find yourself in a better place. But yeah, I think mindfulness is key, and I think that, for some people, again, it's prayer. For me, it's just connecting to God.
Anyone else? What's for the...
Right. Claudia, what are some of the reasons people, associates, wouldn't want to participate in conversation? So say you have a forum where you can come out and have these conversations, connect with each other. Have you, do you have a sense of, have you heard other companies talk through, is it lack of topics, is it lack of, what are some of the reasons why people wouldn't want to participate in stuff like that?
Yeah, I think it's, I know one of my friends, the head of has a major role at Morgan Stanley in technology. We met a few years ago, and she's become a major change agent and driver of our partnership. We actually had, she said that on the Morgan Stanley Times Square building, this a month ago. But she actually said to me that before I met you, I never really, she's been at Morgan Stanley for 16 years, and she never went to any of the women's events. She's like, oh, well, if I go to, she had a perception, right, of what that was about. And I think that, and a lot of that was like, because and then some women have always known had to act like men, right, and be more assertive and be more aggressive and ask for things to actually, rise in their jobs. And she just felt like, it just wasn't for her, and that she felt like the topics didn't really relate to her. And then after coming to our conference and being exposed to our programming, then it was sort of like an aha shift happened for her. And a lot of it was like, wait, you can actually go back to your workplace and actually raise your hand and say, hey, why don't we talk about this? Or why don't we talk about that, right? And I think that there is this, I think so many people, we all have our own belief systems, right? And so it is a hard thing to how do you tap into that? How do you unlock that? But I think it is bringing in the right experts and the right speaker to sort of encourage and inspire, and it's exposing them to a diversity of content. I think also today, given what's happening in the world, it is also, people I feel like have a sense of okay, I need to talk more, I need to I need more community. But so I hope that answers your question. I think that the more, again, the more you see, if you see people that you respect and admire, that all of a sudden are doing, coming to things like She Summit or coming to things like this, and hey, you're part of the AWE, the Women's Network, we just did this amazing thing. Wait, I really respect you, and I want to do that thing. We become who we see. You can't be what you can't see. So the more you all start role modeling it, right, the more you start saying, hey, what can I help you with? We have to be the first movers. And so I think it's, the more we can get everybody to be more courageous and actually, even right now, who has questions? Most of you have questions, but you're not raising your hand because, we all tend to be, we all tend to be shy sometimes, right? But it's actually in that conversation, it's in asking the questions, in reaching out, that's where the breakthrough happens. And so I guess I'm answering several questions, but I think that is starting to really change. And I think ERGs, Employment Resource Groups, or business BRGs, which is what traditional corporate companies call these groups. I actually love the fact that AQE calls it culture, because I think that it is it's really about culture change, and so. But a lot of companies now, I actually see the future, the power is in the ERG, the power is in the employee network groups. And actually, when we unleash all of you to start sharing the stuff you care about and the stuff that you're feeling, and the stuff where, gosh, our company is so good in this, but what if we did this? Or, hey, I'm an African American, or I'm da-da-da-da-da, and I don't feel like, this is how I feel about this thing that's happening in the world. And once we start opening up and communicating, that's where the magic happens. And that's the thing about untapped potential, right? Imagine what we would learn and the insights and the efforts, the community efforts that could come out of something like that.
I have a question, Claudia. Share with us the E for She, because I think we all know, here, even in this room, there's a lot of us who understand that whether it is for our daughters or our wives, we committed, but what are the best practice you've seen about the E for She?
Yes, and actually in our meeting afterwards, I've got some slides about that. So basically, I think it's really critical that we stop thinking about it as in terms of what's happening with women, as it's about empowering women, women empowering women, right? It's got to be women and men driving gender equality and just an inclusive equality, I actually say equality of all people. And that is really, if Acuity starts thinking that way, that's just acceleration. You know, because like you guys are year 1 into your women's network, and like Xerox launched the first women's network in the 1960s, you know, and so the thing is, it's just like this thing that, I mean, there's your grandma's ERG, right, that's been around for a long time, but like really what's innovative is starts thinking about how do we get men, women, all the people, you know, driving change for equality and diversity and culture change in this company. And so for the men, He for She was an initiative out of UN Women, where a bunch of male leaders like Paul Pullman, Unilever CEO, Schneider Electric, I believe, you know, also was, your CEO was part of it. And so, you know, where they just like put their stake on the ground and said, you know, like we're committed to, you know, get to X percentage of women and men, gender parity, you know, in our culture, but then also, you know, in you know, where our factories are, you know, third world. Anyway, so it's basically a bunch of getting male champions for gender equality. And so that's just definitely a big conversation now, is the inclusion, engagement, and also the empowerment of men. And it's a whole new paradigm. I actually believe that we're in this advanced wave of the women's movement, but we're in the first wave of the new men's movement. And so where we need so many more male role models to actually, like, you know, the way that the male Sheryl Sandbergs, right? We're like men that are actually out there, you know, driving stuff inside workplaces, in government, in businesses, you know, driving change around diversity and women and standing up for it. And also putting, you know, sponsoring women, you know, having programs, like, you know, like executive male sponsors of the Women's Network, right, which already exists here. So, but it's really, like, it's a whole new paradigm. And in a way, it's an unknown territory, but I think that's the first step. I think also we really need to be conscious, a lot of us are raising sons. And if you think about it, everything is about girl power today. So there's girls who code, there's girls who run, like your daughter who's like 5 years old or 10 years old, right, has a million programs that like are about, you know, girl power, but then like what is masculinity? What does it mean to be a boy? And also with the Me Too movement today, like how do I even engage? If I work in a company, how do I even talk to a woman, right? And so you've got the younger generation men. And so we really need more men to actually step up and start things, start conversations. You know, my buddy Simon Isaacs runs fatherly.com, because also some women are, you know, in many cases, women are starting to outperform. You know, women are outperforming men on, you know, from a financial standpoint. So for example, like if every company wants to get their stats like 50-50, you know, then you've got 50% of like women are in leadership positions. That means more men are staying at home, right? And so increasingly, you know, so there's also a new father platform and father events and, you know, daddy, you know, boot camps. And we're also seeing a lot more like empowerment workshops for men too. Like how do we, because also, you know, vulnerability, right? Men are also taught not to show vulnerability. But lots of, you know, I mean, we're human beings, we're all vulnerable, and we all need to have forums to share that. So there's like man talks, there's men's groups that are opening up, and a lot of thought leaders too around the more men share what they're going through, that will actually solve so much, because they're also role modeling stuff to their boys too, right? So there's just, it's a really complex but really fascinating paradigm shift that's happening in the world around gender norms, like what is masculine and what is feminine. And it's not like, oh, that's a really girl, like female thing to do, like versus a very male thing to do. It's really about, you know, your gender norms are changing.
With that, I am going to end, but I want to thank everybody for attending, both here as well as virtually. For those that are in the room here, we'll be having lunch, and if you want to come up and talk one-on-one with anybody who's here, please feel free, and thank you again for coming.